when you look at what we're considering, you can see that we would have all the elementaries closed. And then I said, consider closing the main board office, which we want to try to do to put them in the buildings. I know we like that idea. What our issue is those records over there. Those records are, we'll still have to be able to operate that office. I don't know what to do with those records. It is a big part of, I mean, how long we got to keep those things? Where is it? 7 years now still? I mean, it's a huge piece back there. We shut that down. That's what stopped us this year. Now, I want principals, I want administrators out in these buildings. I got to be honest with you. You know, working with Tom Turner gave me some new life, man. I mean, he lets me in. I get to do some stuff over here, you know. So this isn't a bad deal, and it's refreshing to get out in these buildings. But I want to maximize our support for our administrators too. That's why I said that last year and why we're still looking at it. If we were to do that, what we're considering right now, and Sean and I and Terry haven't had a chance to sit down and talk about those things, but that's where we're at with those. Kathy Trevathan, the student services function, can work anywhere. She can work on the road. She can work out of her car. She's tough. But that's kind of what we're looking at. And more importantly, I know that, you know, I know you find this hard to believe. We need to talk about it. But, you know, some of the feedback from the board is, you know, gosh, don't close another elementary. I mean, neighborhood schools is a value for this district. It still is. We have a building plan to move back into these buildings. We haven't changed it yet. It doesn't look like it's a reality right now. But if we can get them all housed together, we can do it, and we can really start looking at it more efficiently and provide the better services, and maybe we'll do it cheaper. Like for instance, with our educational service center bill. You know, that bill is pretty hefty. So we're going to look really close. I talked to Kathy the other night about possibly looking at seeing how can we maximize our OT and PT services by putting, you know, does this help us anyway? Does it help us with our psychs? You know, with our counselors, you know, can we get a counselor on those ESPs at each building? Does that help us with intervention services, with special needs services, everything that we have to buy by law? Maybe we can do it cheaper from what we do when we redesign. And maybe it's only short term, I don't know, but this is why, that's the value that we get from that particular piece. And then as you look over on the next piece, we tried to put some costs to it. Yeah, you only save $70,000 by closing Mainville. It's too early to estimate. Michelle, I know you're going to at least $30,000, but what if we drop X amount of kids by closing that? Maybe, or maybe it goes up. I don't know all those things. We don't know the transportation increases, but
We have 200 kids just about over there not getting a bus
right.
right now.
So I don't know
They
how
all have to be bused.
and you're going to have to figure that out too. And maybe it's all your standbys. You got a big job, I'll tell you. You can see what we're going to target to reduce the ES service reduction by making the closings. You can see what 15.1 certified staff does. Don't forget we got to take the 4.3 out, so that will drop a little. You can see what 1.5 administrative staff reductions do. They're targeting 1.2 million in the savings of this. And that's kind of the general direction that we're heading. Now, those numbers and those plans are still up. We got let's keep massaging it to figure out if that's really what we want to be able to do, but that's where we're at. So what's that mean from here? And we'll close up and then we'll take and have some conversations. It means that commission approval of the plan, which not necessarily approval, but making sure that I have confidence and an okay from the commission to move forward with this type of plan so that it is going to meet the benchmarks and it is going to meet the state minimum operating standards. Then we'll begin to move forward on Friday of this week at looking at proceeding with the planning to realign the grades and proceed to establish instructional models that will help us function in those plans. And if you look over the next one then, what we would do then is, I would ask, I heard this a couple times, we need to have this hard talk, Mark, and say, I heard, it's time that, we'll have to make hard decisions. We've been making hard decisions in this district since I've been here 8 years. We're not afraid to make the hard decisions. I need somebody to tell me, we're gonna have extracurriculars, because on that sheet of paper, I was told to look at eliminating all extracurriculars and closing the buildings at 4 o'clock. Now, we need the state commission to advise us. Is that now? Is it next year regardless? Is it gonna hang on a levy? We just need some direction. I think that the state will probably come back and say, well, we need to look at some numbers to see if extracurriculars are self-funding. And see if you want to take that on, take a look at those numbers. And you need to take a look and see if you're going to close down the buildings at 4 o'clock, does that mean we're going to still everything but football? I don't know. I don't know what all that means. It's time for those decisions to be made. And then start 2011-12 school year, we need to know those answers. Now, I also know that open enrollment was an issue. I heard it loud and clear. Are we going to be in open enrollment next year?
Sure.
I'm closing buildings. We talk about it. You just got to start having those conversations. Do we need open enrollment policy? Do we need early graduation policy? Yes, we do. All those things will come into play, and we'll start putting those things into motion and start making decisions on those. But we need some direction, some clear decisions about that. And I think that's what we'll get on Thursday. I need some help from there. And also, don't ever stop. And what we have to do is, we've got a real issue in this school district. We need some answers from the state of Ohio for this Board of Education. And I'll ask those answers, and you tell me how to phrase it, or ask those questions to get those answers. What are they going to do with us? Somebody from the state has to come down and tell us right now what they're going to do and answer those questions. The two questions are what? Are you going to dissolve us if we run out of our borrowing capabilities next year? That's when it's going to happen. And if you do, then how is that going to work? What do we need to be doing? If you're not going to do it, then what are you going to do? We need those answers. I met with a group of superintendents. I met with business leaders. I'm supposed to meet with John Kasich, the new governor here, start looking at getting some answers. Somebody needs to help us. We just need to know. Because either we're going to take care of it locally and get through this, or we're going to start in another direction. We need to have some answers. The other piece that we have to make sure that is very clear and stated every time we leave a meeting. We have a funding problem in the state of Ohio, and we're the model for it. It doesn't work. Reliability on property tax to fund this thing locally, taking this thing to a vote is just it just doesn't work. And we need to make sure that we're sending that message tonight from you guys on Thursday, every time those two things have to talk about why. And we're getting ready to put together 5 or 6 bullets that are wrong with this process of funding schools and get it in Mr. Kasich's hand, because I'm on fixohio.com. I don't know if you guys have gone yet. I'm applying for jobs, and I'm putting in my input. So. Questions from the board or thoughts that we could talk about tonight that we need to work on the answers for what we just talked about?
Who wants to go first? Mr. Bennett, I wanted to clarify the 1.2 million. That was a combination of the various potential cuts that were discussed back in October, I think, for the first time, closing Mayville, reduction of graduation requirements, et cetera. And that's pretty much what it totaled up to. It wasn't that the state just came up with 1.2 million.
You're exactly right. Thank you for clarifying it. I keep doing it because, the treasurer has to have something to put in the forecast. And you know, we fight about this back and forth because even, you know, $200,000, $300,000 is a big deal in the forecast when we start looking at that next year, in the next 10 minutes. So it is not a directive from the state commission to get to 1.2 million. It is, I want to say 1.2 million estimated around there because of us closing buildings and dropping the credits and getting to those minimum standards, which helps obviously significantly with the millage, trying to keep the millage down to pass something in the spring. It is not good educationally, but yeah, I'm sure that people have really vocally been concerned about that over the past few years. Others?
First of all, I'd like to say this. I know this is the directive that you have been given, but to me, I'm sick to my stomach. With all of this, it is just heart-wrenching for me to watch. The question I have is the benchmarking. I know Sean's going to go over that. I mean, we have things here of 25 to 1, 30 to 1, and 35 to 1. My question is, where do these numbers come from, first of all? Because the House Bill 1 has, these numbers are well inflated from House Bill 1.
If you go to the state operating standards, I brought a hard copy and I highlighted that piece right there in front of you, Mary Beth, because I knew that was going to be a question. It's a great question. But that's my very first question. Where is this coming from? Because it doesn't tie well with House Bill 1. They're almost like they're two separate documents.
Well, and that's my question. First of all, they say you can, you know, make all these cuts, get down to quote-unquote minimum operating standards, but yet they're going to also say, okay, but you got to sign a waiver for this so you don't have to spend the money on that, but we don't, it's extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
It's extremely frustrating.
Yes. I would totally concur. Frustration has set in.
I personally, and you could go ahead and ask the board, I do not at all want to see any of this happen. At all. I think it's bad for education. I think it's horrible for education. I know it's not something that you have control over, but I think it's very important for us as a board to acknowledge that we have done everything correctly. We know we have. We've operated at the best, lowest minimum for these kids and gave them an excellent education. Yet this is being kind of shoved down our throats when we don't want it. This is not a quality education. This is not the 21st century education that the governor wants. I guarantee that. I personally think.
Well, I think that I've talked to every board member. This is one thing that we agree on, that we don't support any more cuts, all 5 of our board members, because A, you have shown fiscal responsibility. Just look at your per pupil expenditure. It's one of the lowest, and we have provided the very best during difficult times. We did exactly what the community asked us to do when we went through this recession. The problem here, the real issue is that we've done all the things right. There's two pieces in what we talked about. We have the way we fund schools is a problem. You know, we can't get it, you know, we're 100 square miles, 3 distinct factions here in this community that, you know, taking this to a vote, we're up against it every time. You can look at the data from 1970.